Media manipulation, suppression of information, and ethics in journalism. Meet the VTuber at the center of all of it, and learn how he let personal bias get in the way of his integrity.
For those who don't know, who might not know me, I do newscasting. I cover a variety of different news topics all across the sphere, from VTubing to politics to gaming news to just like weird stuff in between. Very rarely am I covering quote-unquote drama, and if I'm covering something that's considered drama, I'm covering it for a bigger reason, right? Like, we're covering this to try to protect people in the future so they don't run into a situation like this and we'll go through it. Or like, you know, something like talking about predators in the community, talking about, like, say, corporations and corporations taking advantage of VTubers. That's something that's very important to talk about so that people know you don't have to get into VTubing and go through a company in order to be successful.
Meet ArthurAbbott. He is, by his own description, just a little guy shaking his butt, failing at games and reacting since 2021. As you've heard, he also considers himself to be a news VTuber, or at least a source of reliable information. ArthurAbbott really enjoys Sonic the Hedgehog. He has a hobby collecting sound equipment. He's very particular about his audio quality because he wants to deliver high-value, funny, and engaging content. He's a relatively successful VTuber with a consistent audience of about 100 people, who all likely consider him to be a good and ethical person. The reason I said that is because recently he's said a few things I disagree with, and I wanted to say some nice things about him before I get into it. To be clear, I don't think he's a bad person, I just think he's a little overzealous. A few weeks ago, a small VTuber named Pacey was facing sexual harassment allegations. In summary, 20 women, including his mod team, streamers from his association VTrash, and his audience members all came forward around the same time with similar stories. In addition to this, 3 prominent members left the group disbanded, and his friends all agreed that he was a vindictive liar. My opinion after reporting on the story was that Pacey did in fact do the things that were claimed, and he is a dangerous manipulator. The things that made this story interesting, aside from the scandalous nature of sexual misconduct allegations, were that a man in a position of power abused that power to prey on vulnerable women, that the cancellation coincided with the destruction of a popular VTuber association, and that Pacey's friends apparently conspired together to organize a media effort to take him down. Now, part of that media effort involved shaming news creators for reporting on the news. Kathy N.T. describes herself as a content creation advisor, Twitch partner, and news YouTuber. Knowing nothing about this woman, here are 2 of her tweets where she says she wants to help content creators level up their content. Her YouTube channel, Catliente, a play on her name and the Spanish word for hot, contains videos with thumbnails designed to draw a viewer's attention with a catchy title, engaging, well-edited thumbnails, and the classic little red arrow that weirdly makes humans click videos more often. The first 10 seconds of her video is heavily edited with subtitles, a catchy hook, sound effects that attempt to immediately grab the interest and keep the viewer. In other words, she makes effective clickbait, plays the game, and maximizes her reach with editing and skill. On the 27th of October, Catliente made a video about Pacey with the title, "VTuber's awful behavior causes VTuber group to disband," with the thumbnail pointing to Pacey and saying, "begged for nudes," in Catliente's title. When this screenshot was taken, the video had reached 24,000 people. On the 28th of October, one day after publication, Arthur made a tweet saying, "I'm not going to stay silent on this anymore. I'm so sick and tired of drama slug clout goblin parasites masquerading as journalists in the VTuber space. Catliente, you monetize the trauma of 50 plus victims of a sexual predator for AdSense and are unrepentant about that. You did not contact a single victim for their statements, did not ask or care about consent of those you are sharing the stories of, extremely ironic considering the subject matter, and, when called out directly for this, and for allowing your comments section to be a swarm of your drama-hungry fan base, victim blaming those who were affected and calling them dramatic and overreacting. You simply private the video rather than removing it, and have yet to apologize to any of the people you spoke about. Do you know why she did that? It was because on YouTube, you are algorithmically harmed by deleting videos. This worm cares more about the views she would lose rather than the negative effects of her dogshit tabloid reporting had on victims of sexual coercion. This is the standard of fucking journalism we allow and have allowed for 5 fucking years to perpetuate in this community with barely any pushback, and I am sick and tired of it." When asked a follow-up question, he further clarified his position. You might want to reread the post again. It's pretty clearly laid out what the problems are, but let me give you a checklist. 1. Covered it in the first place against the wishes of victims, which is clearly stated on the Twitters that they had to have looked at to find the statements. 2. Did no journalistic due diligence, never reached out to anyone involved for a statement or consent. 3. The coverage itself was horrible. They got multiple things wrong, framed things entirely around the breakup of VTrash rather than the massive deluge of sexual misconduct allegations with verified proof. Did not cover any of the screenshots proving the allegations, even though they were present in the Twitters they once again had to have viewed, and framed VTrash as toxic from an offhand comment made on one of the live streams, when if they had contacted any of the victims, they would know that there is a complete solidarity with every member who is not Pacey. They did not actually deliver the video. The video was set to... they did not actually delete the video. The video is set to private, meaning they do not lose the views from their channel. This displays they clearly care more about their algorithmic performance than actually removing the video. Their comment section when the video was still up was a nightmare of victim blaming, which is completely unmoderated. This is once again likely so that their algorithmic performance was not harmed by the removing comments, and so they do not upset any of their viewers by allowing them to say foul things about victims of sexual coercion. Because Catlegente's video is unavailable, I have no way of verifying Arthur's claims. Based on her other videos, if her videos are of a consistent quality, her reporting seems to be reading the associated material, spliced in with commentary and questions. The news reporting may well be low quality, but that's not the point of this video. The fact here is that Arthur attacked Catlegente's quality, questioned her ethics, and assigned to her malice, negligence, and greed in her content creation, attempting to damage her brand. Now, I'm going to mention at this point that Arthur is close personal friends with the victims in the Pacey situation. Given that, it is understandable that he's upset, and that he had choice words for Catlegente. I will also point out that I don't have any evidence that Arthur's tweet, or Arthur himself, is responsible for pressuring Catlegente to take down her video. Nonetheless, her video was taken down and her viewpoint was suppressed. Now, before I attempt to address Arthur's arguments, I will show another example of the same behavior. Alara is a relatively well-known VTuber who describes herself as a heavy metal elf plus goth newstuber with a metal hand sign and a purple love heart. As a VTuber, her use of social media is a mixture of entertainment and news, and her general presentation is very news-light or entertainment news, where she covers topics that are interesting for VTubers and their fans. Part of her appeal is likely the unique appearance of her model, a rotation of guest stars, and her interactive stream redeems, which make the presentation both silly and engaging. In other words, she's a streamer that acts silly, engages the chat, and maximizes her interactivity. On October 22nd, she ran a stream titled VTrash Founder Exposed, AN Project Closes, and VTuber Doxing Company Returns, whacked her with @Sprixer. The VOD of this stream is cut so that the starting screen is missing and her first subject, VTrash, is removed. The following day, she published an apology.
The fact that this happened is just crazy. So yesterday, guys, I was going to talk about VTrash. I don't know if you're familiar with what's going on with that situation. But basically, this one person was a real butthole. Made VTrash, break up. The main person that was part of this stuff did not want me to share any of their stuff about what was going on. They commented on my stuff. I didn't see it while I was live, but a bunch of people came in the chat and said, hey, they don't want it covered, which I'm always willing to respect. So I'm trying to find out a better way to cover news, if that makes sense. So I think what I'm going to do is, for any personal stuff, I'm just going to reach out to people and be like, hey, do you want to comment on what's going on? I did see something that I'm sure you guys all know 60 Minutes. Have you guys seen 60 Minutes? All I see is delete all your files and wait till you're banned, but you can play offline. Right, I can still play offline, but most of my stuff is online. That's the issue. Right, so I talked to a bunch of my friends. I looked at kind of what 60 Minutes does, and they just really reach out for a comment just to see what people have to say. I think that's what I'm gonna do. I'm just gonna reach out and be like, hey guys, I'm looking for a comment about this news on what's going on. So I think that'll be the best balance, because I want to be respectful of what people are and are not okay with being covered. It's hard to tell when it's posted, right? When people post it, it's public information, right? Everybody's free to talk about it, but I want to make sure that I'm being conscious of what everybody has in their hearts and the intention and things like that. So just try to be more understanding and empathetic.
3 days after, Arthur attacks Alara on stream for her handling of the story. For fair use considerations, I will strive to only show about 5 minutes of his content.
I swear to God, if she did not apologize for it. Oh, she did so much worse. She victim blamed. She victim blamed. So this was immediately after the stream ended that she tweeted this out. Let me read this to you. I want to be transparent with you all. I'm struggling. When I cover something, my intention is for education and information. Sure. I never want to take away from what a victim has to say or their story. Whatever request they have of me, I will always honor, including not covering something should they ask. My intentions is not of malice. I'm having a hard time understanding what and what isn't okay to cover. I want to share information in a respectful way and uphold my own personal integrity. I want to tackle important subjects and highlight bad actors if need be, but none of that is as important as consent. Maybe you should ask for consent before, and actually give a fucking story time instead of being a
So again, his main concern is consent about publication.
fucking shock jock and immediately trying to get a story out as quickly as fucking possible so you can capitalize on algorithms, you dumb fucking bitch! Jesus Christ! I see something posted publicly and think everyone should know about this. That seems to not be the case, and I don't know what to do anymore. Where is the line? Do I need to reach out to every person in every story? No, you don't need to reach out for every person, every story, but serious fucking stories where there are victims of goddamn sexual abuse and assault, maybe.
He characterizes the VTrash situation as sexual abuse here, which is hyperbolic, as sexual abuse normally implies or is interpreted to mean that he physically touched his victims, which Pacey did not. He did not touch any victims. All of the interactions around Pacey are online. He then proceeds to villainize Elara's intentions as manipulative and highlights her disagreements as disingenuous and evil.
You should double check with them, you fucking vapid bitch! What is wrong with you? Wrong with you? What the fuck? What? I'm losing my mind. I'm actually losing my mind that I have to share a space with her. It's crazy. I am listening, I am trying, I want to do the best I can. And do you know what the best she can is? To argue with people in the comments when she posts this shit. Because you know what this was? Let me explain to you what this was. This was engagement bait. This was engagement bait for her community, so that they could butt pat her and tell her that she wasn't in the wrong. Let me show you. Hold on. Actually, let me skip ahead a little bit, and I'll show you the butt patting. Here's the butt patting that she actually wanted. That was sending direct fucking hate to the victims of a major fucking incident.
He doesn't provide proof.
It's another thing entirely if it's something in a safe space like Discord or DMs. If someone comes to you to vent or whatnot, then yeah, don't go over it. But if it's public, it's free game, short and sweet. You can cover it and speak your 2 cents on it. What a great person. What a great opinion. I sure do love that opinion. That's really cool. Yeah, use other
He assigns greed as a motive.
people's trauma for clickbait and for your own personal gain. Because they put it out on Twitter. So it's free game. Do whatever you want with it, right? I agree, it's posted online in a public account. A private account would be different. If it's out in the open for the world to see, those people who made the post can't complain. Shut the fuck up. I don't care that you were the victim of a sex crime. Shut your
Pacey is not accused of a sex crime. None of his victims in their statements said he committed a sex crime.
fucking mouth. Stop complaining. I'm doing the news. I'm just covering the news. It's news. I need to cover the news. I agree that if it's public, then it should be considered fair game. But if it's a touchy subject, then some attack is still needed. Maybe reaching out to the topics person is a bonus. A bonus. Yeah, just a bonus, you know. Maybe you'll get them on, you know, for your funny little content. Fucking absolute fucking troglodytes. I'm gonna be transparent as well, Lyra. This is bullshit. And even if you tell me it's a lesson, I don't think it is. It's public information. They share the thing. Everyone can talk about what they want in public. For me, they already consented the moment they share the thing in public. Nice. Very smart. You don't need to ask for consent if the info you want to report on is posted publicly. Means if you see it on X, for example, you can cover it. The ones telling you otherwise are potential victims, in my opinion. What? What the fuck? What? I think it's perfectly fine to cover whatever you want to cover as long as it is in a respectful manner. There's not a single question you could voice on the internet without some idiots giving you crap for it. Take valid criticism, ignore the toxicity, you do you. Blank out names of victims, put it in a public platform, therefore it is public. The lack of care here is crazy. Like, it's actually fucking crazy. The levels of delusion and the lack of empathy and not giving a shit. Like, it's news to these people. It literally is just drama content. To them, like, the trauma of other
Yes, it is news.
Other people is just drama. It's just something to entertain them. Is the opinion every fucking troglodyte? Yeah. Oh yes, or maybe it was identified. We can talk about it publicly without any issues, right? That's how it works. Yeah, that's where it is. She literally blamed the victim. Yep. Yep. So let's get back on the things. Oh, by the way, that tweet's deleted. We'll talk about why in a second. So then many people. So obviously many people were giving her all the butt pats that she wanted, but then some people like Ushi were not giving her what she wanted. Here's what Ushi had to say: "Do I need to reach out to every person for every story?" Quotation marks. Yes. Yes. And then what does ArthurAbbott need to go for? That's an unfair and unrealistic statement to make. If I cover a new model release, do I need to reach out to the person for that? Do I need to reach out to Iron Mouse to talk about her subathon record? I'm all for open conversation, but this response adds nothing to it. I don't know if she's stupid or if she's trying to obfuscate. I genuinely don't know. I don't know if she's just this dumb or she's trying to strawman. Because no, you don't have to reach out to someone for something like an outfit debut or a subathon or happy news. But if you are monetizing someone's trauma, maybe you fucking should. Have you ever in your entire life read the journalistic code of ethics? Rule number 2, Eli, let me teach you something. Rule number 2 is minimize harm. That is rule number 2. If you reporting on someone's trauma and monetizing it is going to hurt that person, that means you don't report on it, meaning you should ask for fucking permission. A model debut and someone getting raped are very fucking different.
Pacey did not rape anybody.
And the fact you can't see that is insane. Or that you're trying to lie and act like it's not, like these things are equate in some way. Plus, yeah, you're supposed to do research. Yeah, no, but that would take time and effort and work, and she doesn't want to do that. She wants the easy money. She wants stimmy noises and big booby titties and getting as much clout as she can with Twitter memes and clickbaiting to high heaven so that people come to her streams and give her money. Like, that's all it's about. The code of ethics. It's not a legal thing. It's a fucking code of ethics. You don't have to legally strain to a code of ethics. But people can shit on you if you don't.
Arthur then goes on to continue his criticism in much the same fashion. In total, his segment criticizing Alara is about an hour long. In the rest of the segment, he shows DMs between Alara and Pacey's principal victim, where she says she doesn't want Alara to cover her, and Alara complies. Other major news VTubers, Kyo, False ID, and Rima Evanstar, did not make or attempt to make any report on this story. Was this because news of a small provincial VTuber group is beneath their threshold of interest? Or was it because there was a rabid mob of angry Twitter users shaming news content creators and the juice wasn't worth the squeeze? We can't know. Now that we're up to speed on what happened, the easiest way to win the debate against Arthur is to put my debate hat on, Google the journalistic code of ethics, and go to the first link, where we arrive at the Media, Entertainment and Arts Alliance Journalistic Code of Ethics. Then we scroll down to item 2 of the MEAA, and we see that the second item of the Journalistic Code of Ethics is, do not place unnecessary emphasis on personal characteristics, including race, ethnicity, nationality, gender, age, sexual orientation, family, relationships, religious belief, or physical or intellectual disability. Which is not, in fact, minimizing harm. And it mentions nothing about victims. But that's alright. Suppose you got the number wrong. Let's read the whole thing. The MEAA Journalistic Code of Ethics. Respect for truth and the public's right to information are fundamental principles of journalism. Journalists search, disclose, record, question, entertain, comment, and remember. They inform citizens and animate democracy. They scrutinize power, but also exercise it and should be responsible and accountable. The MEAA members engaged in journalism commit themselves to honesty, fairness, independence, and respect for the rights of others. Journalists will educate themselves about ethics and apply the following standards. Report and interpret honestly. Strive for accuracy, fairness, and disclosure of all essential facts. Do not suppress relevant available facts or give distorting emphasis. Do your utmost to give a fair opportunity for reply. Number 2, do not place unnecessary emphasis on personal characteristics. Number 3, aim to attribute information to its source. Where a source seeks anonymity, do not agree without first considering the source's motives and any alternative attributable source. When confidence is accepted, respect it. Do not allow personal interest or any belief, commitment, payment, gift, or benefit undermine your accuracy, fairness, and independence. Disclose conflicts of interest that affect or could be seen to affect accuracy, fairness, or independence of your journalism. Do not improperly use journalistic privilege for personal gain. Do not allow advertising or other commercial considerations to undermine your accuracy, fairness, or independence. Do your utmost to ensure disclosure of any direct or indirect payment made for interviews, pictures, or information or stories. Use fair, responsible, and honest means to obtain material. Identify yourself and your employer before obtaining any interview or publication. Do not exploit a person's vulnerability or ignorance of media practice. Present pictures and sound which are true and accurate. Any manipulation likely to mislead should be disclosed. 10. Do not plagiarize. 11. Respect private grief and personal injury. Journalists have the right to resist compulsion to intrude. And 12. Do your utmost to achieve a fair correction of errors. Guidance clause. Basic values often need interpretation and sometimes come into conflict. Ethical journalism requires conscientious decision-making in context. Only substantial advancement of the public interest or risk of substantial harm to people should allow any standard to be overridden. And so the words minimize harm does not appear even once in the code. The only related clause might be clause 11. Respect private grief and personal privacy, but I interpret this as not making salacious stories about people who are deceased. This is especially pertinent to Australian journalism, where Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders feel that reporting on dead peoples or images containing dead peoples is disrespectful. Now, before I declare that the debate's closed and gently crack open my extra-large can of Mountain Dew, I will mention that there exists the Society of Professional Journalists, who do have a minimize harm clause, so I'll have to answer to that. Minimize harm. Ethical journalism treats sources, subjects, colleagues, and members of the public as human beings deserving of respect. Journalists ought balance the public's need for information against public harm or discomfort. Pursuit of the news is not a license for arrogance or undue intrusiveness. Show compassion for those who may be affected by news coverage. Use heightened sensitivity when dealing with juveniles, sex crimes, and sources of subjects who are inexperienced or unable to give consent. Consider cultural differences in approach and treatment. Recognize legal access to information differs from ethical justification to publish or broadcast. Realize that private people have a greater right to control information about themselves than public figures and others who seek power, influence, or attention. Weigh the consequences of publishing or broadcasting personal information. Avoid pandering to lurid curiosity, even if others do. Balance the subject's right to a fair trial with the public's right to know. Consider the implications of identifying criminal suspects before they face legal charges. Consider the long-term implications of the extended reach and permanence of publication. Provide updated and more complete information as appropriate. Even in these guidelines, there is room for interpretation. For example, balancing the public's need for information against potential harm or discomfort means that we are balancing the presence of a sex predator in the VTubing community against the harm or discomfort of people who have already made public statements. Show compassion for those who may be affected by news coverage is the most likely clause that Arthur is angry about, as it means that you should avoid coverage which might incite harassment against victims of sex crimes. Since the media has been censored, it would be nice to know where exactly either Catliente or Ilara incited harassment against victims, either by calling them liars or by strawmanning or misrepresenting their statements. It mentions nothing about this clause about monetizing your coverage or making money by providing a news product. It can also be argued that some of the victims as streamers were people who sought power, influence, or attention, and thus they actually have less right to control their own personal information. Lastly, balancing a suspect's right to a fair trial with the public's right to know means that we should not be accusing Pacey of sex crimes which he did not commit. We should not be putting the word rape next to Pacey's name, and we should not be saying that he sexually abused people when what he actually did was he bothered people on the internet for nudes over Snapchat. Understand that your news coverage could actually be used by Pacey's defense attorneys when discussing whether or not he committed a crime. And the more hyperbolic your statements actually works more in Pacey's defense than it does in the prosecution's. So in short, when discussing the complex topic of ethics in journalism, Arthur has brought a spoon to a knife fight if he thinks that his actions are in any way backed up by these documents or these principles. Moreover, it turns out that screaming, "My victims, my victims, my victims, consent, consent, consent," is not a proper argument when dealing with ethics in journalism. But let's take our debate hat off and offer up an olive branch. Let's suppose that our overarching goal in this situation was the minimization of harm for all those involved. What is actually more harmful? Is it more harmful to upset women who've come forward with their stories about their exploitation? Or is it more harmful having less news coverage of a dangerous sexual predator who goes into streamers' chats, targeting women and exploiting them for sexual favors? Suppose that I, a streamer, discover this story independently, and I have several women and girls in my community. Ought I stay quiet about this? Well, why should I? Is the only solution that I have to guide people to your stream and your reporting? Because apparently only your report on this is legitimate. Whether he intended to or not, what Arthur effectively did was to silence, bully, and suppress the reporting of his news competition. I sincerely believe that he was acting out of love and compassion for the victims involved and the care for his friends, but this does not change the effects of his behavior. Also, I'll reiterate here that there's no direct evidence that Arthur himself is responsible for the pressure faced by Catliente and Alara. Although, given his position as a news influencer, he really ought to know better. It's not appropriate for CNN to tell Fox News, "Don't report on this," or vice versa. Different news sources exist for a very good reason, and that reason is personal bias. I think it's safe to say that everyone agrees that having multiple perspectives in society is part of what makes us free, fair, and fact-based when we consider issues. So Arthur's actions would actually be more defensible if he were just an activist on the sidelines complaining about the news, or if he were just a supportive friend who hates seeing his friends cry. However, as you know, ArthurAbbott has a competing news product to Catliente and Alara. Not only that, but he wanted to report on the Pacey situation himself, as in, the exact same story that was suppressed and that he was actively suppressing and wanting there to be no coverage on was the same story that he himself wanted to do. Now, before we get into Arthur's coverage, I want to point out that it's not unreasonable for Arthur to want to report on Pacey. Also, by having close access to victims, he can guide them through a public interview and create a really good source of information. His stream, which I was not aware of when I made my own video, was sober, respectful, and in-depth as it went over all the allegations and allowed some of the victims to speak in their own words. However, given his close personal friendship with the victims, it is impossible for him to separate himself from his bias, as these clips will show. Firstly, Arthur admits to helping with the story, in bringing the story out into the public.
Case in the first place. So what was your experience with Pacey?
Yeah, well, first of all, thank you again. I know you too. For anyone who doesn't know, Arthur is actually one of the people that was there for me this entire time I was kind of dealing with this shit. So Arthur's not new to this story whatsoever, or my story at least. Arthur...
I was hearing about it almost a year ago at this point, maybe? Like, it was a while ago. But as it was happening, you were telling me about it and telling me how people were not believing you and you were getting socially ostracized from friend groups.
Yeah, it was about 6 months now, but like I think I may have been kind of...
It is impossible not to be biased when you yourself are generating the story. Arthur makes statements comparing Pacey to Harvey Weinstein, making the story more bombastic and hyperbolic than it needs to be.
But that's, you know what that is? It's in a way, it's almost a societal social pressure thing, right? Like the thing I saw stated by a lot of people was that they were afraid of his position. They were afraid that he would damage their careers if they didn't play ball with him. It was very Weinstein-esque, right? Of just people being they're so terrified by the implication of his behavior that they would make themselves uncomfortable to try to appease him.
Arthur then proffers an opinion that Pacey cannot get better.
I've stated things like, oh, I hope he gets therapy. I hope that that something, that he's able to improve and get better. I will. This is my personal opinion, obviously, but I do not believe that this person cares. I
don't think he's capable of getting better.
I do not believe that Pacey. I believe Pacey was fully aware of everything he was doing at all given times. He knew what he was doing was morally reprehensible, and he did not care. I do not think this is a situation where he will be able to improve. I can't diagnose what he has or what exactly is wrong with him. Obviously, thank you. Welcome in, Max. Hey, everybody.
Max, hi.
I can't diagnose what is wrong with him because I am not a professional. But I do not believe that he is. I do not believe that he is the kind of person who was just an innocent. And foolish person who didn't understand the social cues. He knew exactly what he was doing at all given times.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Finally, one of his more hyperbolic statements, Arthur says that he is in the top 5 monsters in VTubing.
But yeah, so to kind of like put a bow on the situation. So you went through this horrible situation of social ostracization where you were treated like absolute garbage, and then unfortunately went through a period of people understandable. Like, so it's not. I mean, it's not great that what happened, but it's understandable what happened and how people were confused and didn't know what was going on. But now it is all out in the open, and people know definitively that you were the victim of what I would say. I'd say Pacey is possibly top 5 worst monsters that we've discovered in the not counting pedophiles. I would say. In the VTubing community. This is
absolutely
a horrible situation that the scope of the amount of damage that he has done to people is it's staggering, to say the least.
So Pacey is simultaneously in the top 5 monsters of VTubing, but if you talk about him, then you're re-traumatizing victims, making money off their suffering, and violating their consent. The unfortunate thing about victims' mental illness and abuse is that quite often these things are messy and not as black and white as you might like. For example, if a schizophrenic has a break from reality and strikes you, is it the person that's striking you, or is it the schizophrenia? Either way, you've been hit, so the difference may well be academic. But do you consider that the schizophrenic is also somebody who's suffering? Does it change the moral calculus of the situation when you ask yourself who's in more pain? The one suffering delusions of mental anguish, or the person who was struck? Pacey is obsessed with sex. I'm pretty sure Arthur will agree with me that that is a basic fact. He is so obsessed that his intrusive sexual thoughts prevented him from forming a single long-lasting partnership. It led to him asking women for nudes at inappropriate times. It led to him keeping secrets, mistrusting others. Eventually, it led to Google Docs, the destruction of his VTuber group, embarrassing stories flying around the internet, the destruction of all of his friendships, and hit pieces on the internet with his name on it. To be clear about what I'm saying here is that Pacey, in some sense, is a victim of his own hypersexuality. Now, does that mean he did nothing wrong? No. Does this mean that his victims don't exist? No. Does that mean that he can't get better? Well, I mean, that depends. This perspective is impossible to reach from Arthur's current position. Being so embedded with the victims and seeing their suffering firsthand, I imagine he wants nothing but the fiery pits of hell for Pacey. In fact, if he's watching the video, I imagine he's pretty mad about this right now, about me saying this right now. However, the reason I'm highlighting this argument isn't to say that I'm right and he's wrong. I'm merely demonstrating what a different perspective might look like on this same set of facts and this same news story. As a speed round, and to cap off another round of arguments about the reporting on Pacey's misdeeds, I want to go over some quick bullet lists. Each and every victim of Pacey consented to putting their thoughts on a public forum. The streamer opened VTube Studio, set up OBS, set her stream title as, "Hey, I gotta be a drama tuber for a day, partner plus 264/318 plus merch rogue," and went live for 2 hours openly talking about it. This shows a premeditation, intent to spread, and consent. Social media platforms have inbuilt share and retweet features for the express purpose of signal boosting what people say. When you post to a social media platform with share and retweet features, it is inherently assumed that you are trying to share and spread information. These features are not consent-based, and there's generally no issue with these features existing. If Arthur wanted to, he could have helped the victim write a Google Doc and spread that instead of the stream if reacting to the stream is what's in contention. News exists to make money. Human activities which are valuable make money. Having a not-for-profit news requirement means that only the rich people or people who can afford to do news as a hobby would be able to produce news. Excluding the poor from producing news or shaming them for trying to make money is wildly inappropriate. I have no idea on the personal situation of Catliente or Ilara. I have no idea if they've ever struggled financially in their lives or what role money plays in their lives. I also see no ethical issue in making money when doing an activity that produces value. Just because Arthur has contentions with Catliente or Ilara's news presentation format does not preclude them from being able to report on the news. They are 100% within their rights to talk about any story which they think is in the public interest. Arthur himself streams for tips and has a throne where you can buy merchandise for him. I did think about reaching out to Arthur for comment before this went live, but then I realized that YouTube has a comment feature, so he can use that if he wants. When all said and done, I don't hate ArthurAbbott, and I don't think he's a bad person. I think he's a man who cares about his friends and wants to make sure victims are heard and respected. The criticisms here are intended to demonstrate to Arthur a problem with his recent conduct so that he can see through a different lens. I understand that the Pacey situation was very personally upsetting for Arthur, as I imagine it would be for anybody. Pacey hurt a lot of his friends, and it's normal to be aggressive and angry when dealing with this sort of thing. I also want to say that the way Pacey was handled isn't even indicative of Arthur's normal content, where he is personable, silly, likes to laugh, reacts, and plays games with his fans. That being said, this video also exists because what I saw was a cancellation mob and censorship around the heart of a major sex scandal in VTubing. I saw a newsman violating journalistic ethics while claiming the moral high ground. I also saw a group of streamers trying to control the narrative, and I thought it was wrong. Before I found Arthur, I might have been persuaded to take my videos about Pacey down, had one of the VTrash streamers asked me nicely. Now, however, I'm putting this video with both of my Pacey videos into a mega file. If this video or my 2 other videos on this situation gets claimed, DMCA'd or taken down through malicious means, I will put the link to that mega file in every piece of content I ever make from this day forward. Until next time, my name is Karnak, I'm a cat on the internet, and it's wrong to suppress the voices of victims.
The reason we're talking about it is, I believe, twofold, right? We're talking about it because the victims deserve to have their story told and to put into a concise timeline so people know what happened. And then secondly, so that in the future, people can identify patterns like this. If we can prevent another Pacey, then we should. Because if you have this story in the back of your mind and this story spreads around and people know what happened, they might have a Pacey in their lives and they realize, wait, hold on, I should talk to my friend. Wait, you have the same story? This person's doing this to you too? If you could prevent someone like this from taking advantage of people, you absolutely, I think, have a moral obligation to do that.
I agree, yeah, I agree 100%.